Okay. Good morning. Today we have our language A teachers with us. We have our Norwegian teacher Jon Morten and our English teacher Ginny. Jon Morten is also the supervisor for self-taught A language, while Ginny also teaches TOK. So to start, how long have you been teaching in the IB? Maybe Morten goes first.
Right, I have to start to count years. Then it'll be 18 years. Yeah.
I've taught IB for now 13 years. Yeah.
Then I'm wondering, what does a typical language A lesson look like? Can you tell me some about that?
Yeah. Well, it's a literature course. So we read literature, fiction. 13 or 9 books over 2 years, depending on which level. So a typical class, you would work with one of those texts, and we'll work on those texts for a period of time, for some weeks, in different ways. Typically, sit around, in my class, you'll sit in a horseshoe, talking about and writing about, learning how to analyze and discuss literature.
So then I'm wondering, if you're familiar with the Norwegian curriculum, how does it differ from the IB curriculum in the same languages?
It's a long time since I've taught the Norwegian syllabus, but I know, of course, how it's kind of constructed. And there's a couple of significant differences. First of all, the focus on literature and literature alone, so we'll get much more in depth with that, but at the expense of other topics that we don't cover. Typically, language history, current spoken and written languages, and lots of things like that. So we go more in depth. It's kind of narrower, but much more in depth.
In the IB, for the various subject groups and subspecific subjects, you have the choice between taking standard level and higher level. And what would you say is the biggest difference between standard level and higher level, and how this impacts the student?
Well, as far as higher level is concerned, then just assessment, just thinking about the assessment, you have an essay that a student has to write in addition to paper 1, paper 2, and the individual oral. But also for paper 1, it makes a difference because students have to write 2 commentaries instead of 1 commentary, and that means that students don't have a choice. They have to write on both extracts that they get. So it does increase the workload and the reading as well. Of course, there are more works. Instead of 9 for SL, you have to read 13 books or works or collections of poetry or whatever it is. So it does increase the workload. However, the skill set remains the same, approximately the same.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So in higher level is not more difficult. It's just more.
So this one's a question specifically for self-taught language A. And it's just about when would you suggest someone to take self-taught rather than Norwegian or English?
Good question. It depends on which languages you know and how well you know them, because A languages, whether it's Norwegian, English, or any other language, is meant for well, what do I say now? Your best language, preferably your mother tongue. And it varies. Some people have clearly Norwegian or clearly English as their best language or their mother tongue. Others have other languages and might be good, but not fully proficient in either English or Norwegian. If you've grown up in somewhere else and had schooling in a different language than Norwegian and English, so for students of that type, it might be a good alternative. If you don't feel kind of confident enough in English or Norwegian to do an language A course.
So since both of you have been teaching for so many years, how would you describe the students in your class, and where in which particular skill set, or how do they fall short? And do you have any tips for present and future IB students?
Where they fall short would be, this is a very reading heavy course, especially, at both levels, even for standard level, higher level, even more. So I think that's one place where students should perhaps be prepared as they start the course to finish. And there is a definite advantage in reading some works twice over. So there's a lot of reading involved. That's one place where students could. The other is writing, of course. Students tend to, both paper 1 and paper 2, especially also for HR, since there are 2 commentaries, not only about writing, it's also about thinking beforehand and planning. So the planning and the part, I think students usually could do much, much better at planning before you actually start writing. I think that those are the 2 things that I can think of. I also think that it's really nice to meet former students, and then the appreciation, I think, for literature grows as you get older as well. So we build those foundations for students, on which students then build up more and more. Is one of those subjects, I feel. So it's a joy. It really is.
Also, the IB gives you the choice of taking 2 A languages. So instead of language B. Yes. What are some tips that you'd give these students, and what is a common trait you find between students who generally perform well in the exams?
If they have both A languages?
Yes.
First of all, I think one of the things, hardworking students who like to read, it helps a lot. Who like literature, but also students who are comfortable with both languages. That they are very, very
you have to be
grounded in both
sort of
languages.
more or less equally good in both languages, because you will be measured against student who has English and Norwegian as the mother tongue. So absolutely, but you have to like to read, because then of course you'll have 18 or even 26 books to read over 2 years.
That you want to do if you don't like
so if you are a bit sort of lukewarm to reading a lot of books, then maybe consider something else.
I think A-B is a good combination, A and B, then you get both.
That's the kind of baseline. But of course we have students who do both and who do well as well, so it's absolutely possible. Absolutely. But you have to like reading.
Before we end, do you have a short little message for a student who is considering taking your course? So,
I would say that if a message would be that it's a course that is taught by teachers who are very passionate about their subjects, so there's a lot of you will feel that it's contagious, hopefully, that passion that flows through, that teachers like their subject. It's a very genuine love for literature, and also that it's something that will stay with you for the rest of your lives, and it'll keep giving and giving and giving. So I think that's